All right, moving on. Next guy, Roman Wilson, wide receiver, Michigan, 5'10" 3/4", 185 pounds, 9 3/8 inch hands, 30 3/8 inch arms, 72.5 inch wingspan. He is 22. He'll be 23 in June. In the 40, he ran a 4.39. He had a 1.52 10-yard split, 12 bench press reps. He didn't do any of the other shuttles or anything like that, or vertical and broad jumps. Last year in 15 games at Michigan, he had 48 receptions, 789 yards, 12 touchdowns, 1 rush attempt for 10 yards.
Roman Wilson, a guy that played mostly from the tape I watched, he was out of the slot quite a bit.
70%.
Okay, that sounds about right, because almost everything I saw, he was primarily out of the slot. Sometimes they would split him out wide, but mostly out of the slot. He was a key target for this team this year. Obviously, it was a team that didn't throw the ball a ton, and that was one of the things that made his tape tricky at times.
Yeah.
Is his games would be pretty short.
I like those, man.
They're fun.
Yeah.
Because like you watch Ricky Pearsall later, like
Yeah.
these are like 10, 11-minute games, and you watch his, you're like, that was 3 minutes.
Every Ricky Pearsall game was 10 minutes.
It was pretty nuts. So that was one of the trickiest parts in watching some of his tape was there's so few targets to evaluate him. But all of that being said, when he did get targeted, I liked most of what I saw. I think he's a really smooth route runner.
Yep.
His hands are very solid. He doesn't have like a huge catch radius, not this amazing like contested catch guy, but I don't think it's a huge deficiency either. He gets in and out of his routes well. He has got good game speed. His quickness is really solid. It was somebody that is a pretty well-polished player, a pretty well-polished receiver, which is different than what we had been seeing from a lot of the Michigan wide receivers for a while. You know, you think of Donovan Peoples-Jones, you think of Nico Collins, a lot of these guys that we had been seeing coming out that were good players that we liked, but
lack the refinement.
They lacked the refinement. I feel like he's a lot different than a lot of those guys, where he does look like he has a lot of that nuance.
He's polished.
That a lot of those other guys didn't have. And so for me, he came in with a 72.35, which was good for wide receiver 12 in this class for me.
Where were you at? I'm sorry,
72.35 for have
a little bit higher, 73.
I was 72.33.
Oh, were you really?
Well, guess what his nerd score is?
Yep, you can figure that out real quick. But yeah, it was a very enjoyable watch. There was nothing in his tape that made me go, wow. But there was nothing in his tape that made me disappointed either. It was just, I was very whelmed the whole time.
Yep.
And I was good.
Whelmed is a good word to use. Yeah, I have him as my wide receiver 13.
Okay, we're one spot apart.
Yeah, and I feel like there's somebody I should have ahead of him anyways. But I agree. I kind of agree. Like, I feel like I definitely feel like he's not a bad route runner. So I don't want to say that. I wouldn't necessarily call him like a really good route runner.
I have a 7, so he's above average.
I give him average.
Yeah, I thought he was just like an average route runner. Like, not like nothing really stood out to me. Like he understood the route concept and ran it, but like I thought it could be significantly better sometimes.
Off your point, because I gave him a 7, which is a slightly above average mark. I thought his routes overall, I could have given a higher mark to, but I did have concerns in some zone coverages where he seemed like he would get a little bit lost at times and kind of almost running into defenders, not always knowing where his guy was. So that was my bigger concern, was he seemed better against man coverage than zone coverage, which it's usually opposite. But
and that's where I kind of came with like Roman. Like when I watched sometimes, I was like, man, he's somebody like you used the word smooth. Like, is he just really fast and so smooth? Like it makes it look like he's a better receiver than he really. And that's because I know it sounds weird saying it because I don't think he's a bad receiver in the least bit. But like when I had my 13, it's kind of like when you said like I'm whelmed. I'm like, yeah, he's just like one of those. Like I've seen so many Roman Wilsons in the NFL, and none of them like turned into be like really good receivers. Now if he did, because he's so smooth and he's got the speed, like at the same time I wouldn't be surprised. No. But a lot of these guys end up just being like a good guy in the Browns would mention, like I know it sounds he just retired today, would be like Rashard Higgins, right? Like somebody come in there,
Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood. Like, they come in there, they got good speed, they could know how to run a route. They're not great at it. They can make some plays, enough plays to get you excited where you like the player too, but like from a fantasy football perspective, they're a really good wide receiver 4 in a team. When somebody goes down, they get their playing time. You're excited about them, but like nobody you're ever going to see as like a star and a week in, week out starter. And that, again, I know it sounds like a diss because I like the player, but that's just kind of how I came away about Roman. Like,
I think that's
I'd just rather go like there's so many more upside guys in here that I feel like in the right situation I'd be excited. Now I'm sure after his draft capital go, because I'm sure Roman Wilson's kind of guy to probably go in the second round. I might be more excited in his landing spot, but we'll see.
It's funny because he actually reminds me a lot of another player in this class that we're going to get to. I just liked the other player a lot more. But we'll get.
We haven't talked to you yet.
We
Yeah,
have
I
not
mean,
talked about
like so let me put it this way: like if Roman Wilson, like the Cardinals went Marvin Harrison Jr. and then went another receiver, right? Like
And like the
and
third.
a third, right? And it took Roman, like say he fell to high third, and Roman Wilson went a third. I'd be way more excited with Kyler Murray and Roman Wilson as the number 2, and then Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison. Then I'd be more excited
and
about
Michael Wilson. That would be a good trio.
It would.
You got Wilson on one side, Harrison, and then
Roman
him in the slot.
Yeah, like I would like him there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but then if you put him against some other teams, I might not like.
What if he goes
the Browns?
No, what if he goes to the Chargers? What if
Excited, yeah, way more excited. 1, he's with Harbaugh, 2, and 2 with Herbert and the targets. Like that's the thing. If Roman Wilson's in line to just be like just automatically put into the starting lineup, and he's like at least a number 2 somewhere, like
I
it's
think that's what he is. Like
He's a slot receiver.
He's a slot guy. I think he could play the Z. I think he's fast enough to do that, and I think he has the movement skills to do that. So if he lands in a good spot, I think he could be like a wide receiver 3. That's how I see this guy.
Yeah.
I don't see him, if everything's perfect, maybe he's a wide receiver 2 and he's getting peppered with targets. That's the only way that he lives.
He could finish
lives
as a
in
wide
that-
receiver 2.
Lives in that range for me. So, I mean, you guys have said most of the same stuff that I've already got. I did see him do some good things in zone as well. So, I mean, I saw him kind of gear down and slow down and sit down in some of those spots. Maybe I missed the times that you were talking about. Maybe you missed the times that I'm talking. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that stuff going on. But I think he's got really good hands. He's not a contested catch guy. He's a feet on the ground guy. He's never going to be leaping to make a bunch of catches or anything like that. So there isn't a lot of upside. He's not a big run after the catch guy either.
Doesn't break any tackles.
Right. So he is a guy that's going to need to separate. He's going to be making catches in the intermediate zone. He's going to have to catch a lot of balls to be fantasy relevant. That's just the way it is. Unfortunately, it's hard because there were so few targets. I mean, you look at a guy like Keon Coleman. I think he had last year. He had where the heck is it? I was looking at it earlier and I
It's in your
lost it.
stat sheet next to targets.
Oh, is that where it's at?
By alphabetical order.
Yeah, no, he had 87 targets. He caught 50 of them for 650 yards. This guy had only had 50 targets or something like that, and did the most with them. Or he had 67 targets. He caught 48 of them, and had more yards, more touchdowns than a guy like So the guy can get open in small spaces. He can do some things, and I mean overall, I like him. I think I had him at 73 or something, 73.45.
Very fine receiver.
Yeah. It's about a point ahead of me.
About a point ahead of you. Yeah. So I like him. I think there's a spot for him. I think he could be a wide receiver 3. I don't see a lot of upside for him to ever be a high-end wide receiver 2 or even coming close to wide receiver 1 numbers. But, you're going to have to fill your roster out with somebody. This guy, I think you could do worse than him in like the second round of our rookie draft.
I just want to see where he ends up going.
Yeah.
Like with this draft, his receiver class, like I was telling you guys before the show started, like I never had such a tough time like putting these guys in order how I liked them, because like I feel like this is a bit, and I just put out on Twitter my pre-draft rankings. So mine are on Twitter right now at Dynasty Rich, but like I have those ranked in tiers right now on Twitter, and it's like you're literally splitting the most micro hairs possible. Like Brian Thomas and Adonai Mitchell to me, like they're like okay, whose spot do I like better?
Mitchell,
You know what I mean? Like, they're that close
You
for
want to
me.
take Mitchell there.
So for me, like I got guys like Anthony.
Whoa! What?
So I have right now. I got Roman Wilson at 10, but the guys between 9 and 13, or I think 14,
Or like 10 and 7.
Splitting
are
hairs.
all are guys that I'm all gonna have to watch back to back to back to back to kind of figure out who I'm going to place where, because they're that close that I could, depending on how big they are, what kind of upside I actually
Pick your
see.
flavor.
Yeah, exactly, is how I'm going to end up ranking those guys.
Jared, you got anything you want to time in on?
Yeah, I saw Roman Wilson similarly to you guys. One thing I wanted to say is like I think he might end up being a better pro receiver than he was in college just because he was at Michigan, and just watching his tape, it made it really tough to eval. Like, I had to watch a lot more games of Roman Wilson than I would other receivers in this range. I thought he had really good ball skills when given the opportunity. Like, he is able to go up, contort his body, make a catch, acrobatic catch away from his body when given the opportunity, even though they were few. And you can just tell by the way that he moves, like, he's a really sound athlete, really polished, has really good body control. He was actually on Bruce Feldman. He puts out like a freaks list for college football players going into the year, and he was on Bruce Feldman's freaks list, where he ran a 6.2 3-cone and 3.77 shuttle. Now, obviously, he did those same exact drills in the combine, and he scored really, really good. Not at the combine. That was in Michigan's testing. Okay. That was in his freaks list going into the year. But he is 6.75 3-cone.
You know, those hand times are a little different.
Oh, 6.75.
That was for the combine. Yeah, I was talking about.
Okay.
So
got it.
The freaks list goes out prior to the college football season. It's not from the combine.
Got it.
But yeah, he had a 6.75 3-cone 3.99 shuttle. Matt, you already said that earlier. But so super agile player, really tough. Like, I think he's a good blocker, which in itself has value and will get you on the field in the slot receiver position. Like, he's going to do all the things you ask him to do. On top of being a really good athlete at the positions. I would love the Browns. Like you said, the Browns drafted him. We need a receiver like that. I would love that they.
It was funny you mentioned that because I had a hard time with his physicality because I don't think he played super physical as a receiver, but he was more than willing to play physical as a blocker. So that was that I had a hard time with that. Where to put his physicality because of that.
Yeah, he's my 12th ranked receiver as far as tape score goes.
I love how you talked him up big time, and I kind of dude on him, even though I studied like him. I have him as wide receiver 13. You have him as wide receiver 12.
And it just would depend on landing spot. Like, where do I think he's going to have opportunity?
Yeah.
And if not, then he's going to move.
And that's what I was saying. It's like I don't want to sound like I'm bad, but I'd rather sit here and talk about that.
Yeah.
For my own personal reasons.